Let me start with something very uncomfortable. The man who speaks first often loses. Not because he is wrong, but because speaking first is usually a reactive move. To rush forward in order to explain yourself is, at its core, a defensive act. And defensiveness is a subtle confession of insecurity. Insecurity reflects weakness. Weakness eventually leads to surrender, and once you surrender, exploitation becomes inevitable. You must accept this truth. After surrender, you no longer control what happens to you. But before surrender, you control your posture, your actions, your frame. You can position yourself in such a way that you retain the upper hand so that the moment of being cornered never even arrives. Understand this deeply. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy, and most men never comprehend this. Let me break down the real problem. We live in a world addicted to noise. By noise, I do not mean shouting or screaming. I mean the constant rush toward reaction. You want instant replies, immediate reactions, endless explanations. Why? Because you are addicted to noise, and noise has made your consciousness so vague that you now assume you are important enough for others to drop everything and respond to you instantly. This is where ego begins to settle, and ego makes you excessively reactive. The first step toward truth is rebellion. Rebellion against the very conditioning that raised you. You must cut away all the animalistic instincts that push you to react impulsively. And that rebellion begins with silence, with observation, with resisting yourself before resisting the world. Only then can you win. Let me give you a modern example. A girl ignores you. You double text. Someone challenges you. You become argumentative. You believe that speaking more will give you victory. But today, every third man is engaged in what I call the commercialization of words. Understand this. Talking more does not give you control. It simply exposes your insecurity, and once exposed, the world knows exactly where to strike, precisely where you cannot endure. Most men fear silence because silence exposes something uncomfortable, the need for validation. And validation is merely ego seeking nourishment. You want to be understood, which often means you lack clarity within yourself. You want to be seen as right, a sign of insecurity. You want to be noticed, an ego complexity. But here is the truth. The more desperate you are to be seen, the smaller you appear. The more eager you are to be validated, the weaker you look. This is why men of true stature do not argue. They speak less, they do not seek validation, they do not rush to explain themselves. Let me give you the psychological foundation behind this. Silence works because the human brain is deeply reactive to uncertainty. It craves completion. It wants the narrative to feel finished and controlled. The moment you stop speaking, the other person starts thinking. Not because they are fascinated, not because they are deeply attached, but because uncertainty triggers the brain impulse to fill gaps. When the gap is not filled, psychological pressure begins to build. That pressure strikes directly at the ego, and ego compels over analysis. This is why silence feels heavy, because it allows the person to sit alone with the very tension they helped create. Let's bring this into real life. You are talking to a girl. Suddenly her replies become dry, one word answers. Most men panic. They send longer texts, they ask, "Did I do something wrong?" They flood her inbox with emotional clutter. At that moment, she realizes she has control, and what is controlled never becomes attractive. But if, in response to a dry reply, you simply step back without drama, without explanation, without performance, the entire dynamic shifts. Understand this very carefully. The difference is not in effort, the difference is in noise versus silence. The same applies socially. In debates, the one who speaks the most appears defensive, and the defensive man never appears strong. The one who pauses, listens, and then responds appears composed. Even on social media, the man who disappears and returns with a strong frame appears powerful. Scarcity preserves value. Overexposure destroys it. When you give unlimited access to yourself, you personally dismantle your own worth. Let us reinforce this philosophically. The ancient Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote privately, not for applause, not for performance, but for himself. His strength came from self control, not public validation. Seneca warned us clearly, reacting to every insult is a sign of foolishness. Emotional disturbance, he argued, is often a choice. Friedrich Nietzsche spoke of strength, not as a physical force, but as a mastery over oneself. All three arrive at same conclusion. The man who cannot control himself will be controlled by others. And there is no greater slavery than psychological dependence. Silence is not suppression. Silence is selection. And that selection grants you authority not over others, but over yourself. And authority over oneself is no less than a blessing. Now let me give you a practical framework to use silence strategically. Delay your response. Yes, the first one is delay your response. If you are emotionally charged, remain quiet. A rushed reply is almost always contaminated. Stop over explaining. If your answer is no, say no. If your answer is yes, say yes. Nothing more. Silence after clarity signals confidence. Do not argue for validation. If someone misunderstands you, do not chase them to correct their perception. Those who genuinely seek clarity will ask logical questions. Those who seek drama will provoke you even after explanation. So silence win here too. Detached from outcomes. Silence only works when it is genuine. If you are quiet out of fear, it will leak through your behavior. When you are not afraid of losing, you stop reacting. Let me give you a great closing. Understand this carefully. Silence is not manipulation. It is discipline. The world constantly provokes you, tests you, disrespects you, throws uncertainty at you, emotionally baits you. Most men fail this test because they react, but the composed man forces the world to adjust to him. Not through noise, not through intimidation, but through calm presence. When you speak less, your words carry weight. Your presence carry gravity, and gravity does not beg. Master your reactions, master your silence, because in every competition, the loudest man in the room is usually the weakest. Real strength often belongs to the one standing quietly in the corner, smiling, waiting for the right moment to move.